Hello and welcome to What We're Watching. It's Katherine.
And Liz.
And Ed.
And John.
Okay, so I want to start off with, I'm watching Heartstoppers Season 3 on Netflix. This is a romantic comedy about two young men who fall in love. They're high school students. This is a British comedy. The series was written and created by Alison Osmond, and it's based on her web series and graphic novel. I really enjoyed season 1 and 2, and so this season 3, I was very excited when it arrived on Netflix, and I gobbled it up pretty quickly. It's really a coming of age of these two young men and their relationship, and then their friend group, and then also their family storylines as well. This third season is a lot more serious. It really touches on some mental health issues in the form of OCD and eating disorders, and a little bit of self-harm. And those were touched on a little bit in the earlier seasons. So you knew it was kind of going to be a bigger part of the story, but it is really this season 3 that's the main focus, it feels like, particularly between this primary set of characters, this couple of Nick and Charlie, who are very sweet. And obviously, you know, I'm not a teenager. I mean, I know that
That's not obvious.
Oh, thank you, Ed. And so part of me feels like this show is not really for me, but I love it. I want shows like this to exist. They're very positive in terms of like allowing young people to see representation in the LGBTQ community and the struggles of relationships in general, but also friendships and supporting each other. It's very uplifting.
I don't want to jump in and say like anything specific to you or your life, but it is also like most of my sisters have teen to 20-year-old kids. So watching some success is like, yes, that's what I'm going to tell my kid to date like that. You know?
Yeah, that's interesting. The perspective is not necessarily that it's not for me as my age, but that is, my daughter specifically is in that age group. Well, she's a little bit older because these are teens. They're in, I want to say like high school, but whatever they say
It's the third
in
season.
England.
Are they still in high school? Would they start as freshmen?
They started as like sophomore, freshmen, so they're doing, but I don't know
They're pulling
how
a
that works.
90210 where everybody's 30, but they're playing 17 for 5 years.
These are really, these actors really seem young. They seem to be authentic teenagers.
Oh, okay.
But I was going to say more like the high school thing where it's not like junior, senior. It's third year. Are you taking your whatever tests? So there's a little bit of confusion on my part, just not fully understanding what that educational progression is. But it definitely feels like they're junior and seniors, that kind of vibe. And they're trying to figure out what they want to do about college or uni or whatever. And if one of the characters, the big dilemma is, should he go away? So there's a little bit of that in this season. It was a really nice season. I definitely recommend it. All 3 seasons are currently available on Netflix. It's only 8 episodes per season, so it's kind of a quick watch. I would only caution people to be like, well, there is a little bit sad stuff and possibly difficult to watch if you're sensitive to that kind of thing.
The mental illness part.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Otherwise, it's really kind of light. Sometimes it's a little bit too light. And again, that's where I'm like, all right, it's not really for you. So just because like it's just teens having fun out on an outing. And you're like, okay, that was a lot of fun time. And we're all laughing and giggling and throwing chips at each other. And you're like, well, I mean, I guess I do kind of remember the exuberance of youth and that sort of.
That's very exuberant. I don't know.
But I really enjoy it. So that's Heartstoppers on Netflix.
All right.
Love it.
Season 3. Okay.
I watched Nobody Wants This on Netflix.
Oh, yes.
Now that's starring Kristen Bell and Adam Brody. It's based on the story of Kristen is a very smart, quick, sarcastic, single podcaster. Her sister is her partner. How interesting.
What? Oh,
I have
that's
no idea what that's like.
weird. Yeah. Okay.
Kristen has never played a character like that.
I know.
don't think.
This is-
And she doesn't even do podcasts.
I mean, listen, this is very on brand. It was not outside of her wheelhouse. That's why she nails it. And her and her sister, so she's Joanne and Morgan, have this podcast. And a lot of it is about their foibles and failures in the dating world and with men. So Kristen Bell's character decides, I'm going to change it up and approach this totally differently. And she meets a single rabbi who had just broken up with his girlfriend, basically in episode 1. And they start to date each other. And really the series is about how can they meld their world together when she's basically a non-believer, non-Jewish, and he is on track to become the head rabbi at his temple.
Oh.
The series was created by Erin Foster, which was based on her own life and experience with her Jewish husband,
Oh.
and she converted. And she was originally going to star in it, but Netflix was like, hey, how about Kristen Bell? And she was like, hey, great idea.
I mean, that's great.
Yeah.
If you're like, oh, you want Kristen Bell to play me? Fantastic. Go
I had
for
that
it.
in mind, but I wasn't going to suggest it.
Right. And originally it was titled Shiksa, which is sort of a slang term for a non-Jewish female. Because I'm one. I married a Jewish guy.
Is it derogatory or just?
It's not a positive connotation.
Well,
Well, it's also interesting because I think in the Jewish faith, it's the woman that carries the birthright or the family line. So if you're not even in the family lines, then you're really out of their circle.
For carrying on of the religion, is that what you mean?
Yeah. So it's not like a patriarchal style, like the father is, and then you get the last name of the father, and then you're part of the family. It's like, oh, there's actually, you got to track that a little bit. So if she's not part of the lineage.
Yeah, she would have to convert. So it's created by Erin Foster, David Foster's daughter, and her sister Sarah.
Wait, who's David Foster?
They're the daughters of David Foster, the big music producer. And they make jokes quite often that, David's current wife, which is Katherine McPhee,
Yeah.
that they're basically the same age. So there you go. But they kind of came to public notice because of their sort of self-deprecating, funny personalities, Sarah and Erin. So once again, like I said, Erin, this is loosely based on her own experience in life. There's a writer that she worked with, Lindsay Golder, who worked on The Mick and School of Rock, Chad, In the Dark. So, she gets the tone right. And you referenced it before, Eddie, that yes, primarily Kristen, because full disclosure, I actually worked with her in a company for a few years. This is very close to like her sort of personality, but circumstances are different, but very charming.
This is a type of character that she's played before and really good at.
Yeah,
This is-
I mean, I'm not taking anything away from her. She does a very good job with
For
it.
sure.
The chemistry is what most people are talking about. Now, I guess Adam and her had previously worked on a few projects together, and Kristen recommended Adam Brody for this. And he was like, ooh, I barely got bar mitzvahed, and I've been very Jewish light most of my adult life. So if I'm going to play a rabbi, I got to come up to speed on it.
Oh, do some research.
Yep. So he does that, and his chemistry is great. His brother, Sasha, is played by Timothy Simons, and he is so funny. And his wife is played by Jackie Tom, I think is how you pronounce her last name. And she, in real life, IRL, right? In real life, IRL. She's very good friends with Kristen Bell. So I think
Oh.
Kristen, in a way, recommended her for the part of Esther. Now, Sasha and Esther are married. Basically, Adam Brody's family, Noah, does not want him to marry a shiksa. They want him to find a nice Jewish girl. He had one, the character of Rebecca, but he dumped her. And, now is like, how is he going to navigate this? So it's very charming. It's 10 episodes on Netflix. I don't really think they're more than a half an hour-ish each. It moves very quickly. It's based in LA, and they used actually LA, which you gotta love. So I highly recommend it. I feel like it's the modern day, the kind of more realistic, not the Hallmark. And some of the plot points you go, okay, I know where this is going, or like this is what's going to happen here. But they're not so cliche. So it's charming, but I feel like they leave each episode on a little bit of a bump cliffhanger. What's going to happen now? The relationship. And really, Kristen Bell's character is the neurotic one trying to have a normal relationship for the first time. And she has so little experience doing that. It's very challenging. But then you have the overarching problem of Judaism, religion, conversion.
I
So-
was going to say also, I really like the actress who plays her sister.
She's great. She was actually Justine Loop.
Yep.
She plays Morgan. She was pregnant during it and hit it for most of the cast and crew.
Oh,
So
really?
I didn't notice. Thought she was great.
So she was in Succession, and also I recently watched Big Door Prize. She was in that. She's great. I love her.
They had the right dynamic and chemistry as sisters.
As sisters.
And then the parents are awesome because it's Michael Hitchcock and Stephanie Farisi. They are divorced, and Michael Hitchcock's character has come out as gay. And now it's sort of like him and his boyfriend and the mother getting involved and giving their opinion. So it's a fun, tight cast. The chemistry is really great. They have this best friend, sort of producer of their podcast, played by Sherry Cola. She's an Asian American actress, was a comic that transitioned to acting, has one of those like deep, gravelly voices that just instantly like draws you in. Very fun. Like I said, there's a bit of a seriousness because of the religion element and conversion, and will they stay together or won't they? Can they make it work because of that? But otherwise, it's all about their chemistry. It's very charming. It's what I think modern day rom-coms should be like. It felt more grounded in reality. It did not feel like some of the fantasies that we were dealing with, and we're heading right into that season.
Ooh, yeah.
Hallmark holiday season.
Oh,
where
we're going to get a lot of good ones.
Yeah. But,
or, at least Hallmark ones. I'm trying to think of a word that's not good, but like Hallmark. So it doesn't
The word
Feel
is
good.
good.
Okay, all right.
Okay.
Feel good. I like that. Feel good.
There you go. So nobody wants this, but people actually did want this.
Yeah, apparently.
On Netflix.
All right, great. Okay, Ed, you're up.
I'm going to switch up the order that I had planned because we got so much relationship stuff going on and the real positive stuff or challenging working through stuff. I watched Industry on HBO Max. And that is not a positive relationship-y type of show.
Not really.
The brief description is, young bankers and traders make their way in the financial world in the aftermath of the 2008 collapse. And that doesn't really set the tone that it's in England. So it's not like, some of the Too Big to Fail or the meme stock ones that I watched. This one was pretty interesting because I'm not totally familiar with how the other exchange markets or other money things work, and England's a particularly interesting setting. So there's 3 seasons right now. They're all 8 episodes. The main cast is Malia, who you may or may not know from other amazing projects. There was, what was the podcast one that she did? There's an episode of Black Mirror. That's where I first tuned into her, and I'm like, where are her eyebrows? There's 4 sprigs coming out. What's happening? But that's her style. She's been in a bunch of other things. But watching her progress over the series, I actually got to watch the eyebrow progress over 4 years. So it's pretty interesting. And the rest of the cast, Marissa Abella plays the kind of best friend / other trader who's got her own personal drama. So both of these 2 main characters come into this series with baggage, like Louis Vuitton / duffel bag baggage. Both of them have different kinds of baggage, and it gets kind of dirty throughout this whole series between them being, young up-and-coming 20-somethings in a money business. They're around everything, so they indulge, and all of it goes terribly. So it's a little bit like if Euphoria, all of that cast stayed together, grew up, and then went to work together later because they're all bad news for each other. You don't want any of them to get together or who they get with or the decisions that they make or how they're backstabbing each other. It's, it's lots of drama. There's no real, top of the pyramid that you're worried about that person's really going to upset something. Everybody's got their demons, and everybody goes through, wild tribulations through these seasons. Plus, then also we're dealing with money markets, so there's, $1 million fluctuations per episode where people's lives come crashing down, and then they rebuild. And you're like, that was a 40-minute episode? How did you do that?
Yeah.
So as far as, an exciting TV series, I think it just wrapped up at season 3, and I'm pretty sure where they left off was having binge watched all 3 seasons in a week.
Oh, wow.
It is now set up for a season 4. A lot of the characters that were knocking things over or didn't have their direction yet, they've really got a path now. They've really figured out some problems and they're working on them, or they're leaning into them, whichever way they went. So I'm excited about another season. Probably be 9 months before we get it because this just wrapped and it was doing a slow rollout of episodes and it just wrapped at the end of September. So I would imagine we're probably not getting it till the next summer. But I would recommend it, and it is very dramatic, and there is adult scenery. So it's not like your usual Netflix where you might get a butt. This is just oh, well.
Oh, you mean full nudity?
He's erect.
What?
That's a terrible character, and you're showing us him do the terrible thing that gives this character all the reason for hate inside of her, and that's a bad dude. Okay, great.
Wow. Now I'm intrigued.
I didn't need all of that, and most of the time I don't need any of the stuff you're giving me, but whatever you're going for.
Okay.
So
Interesting.
adults, version of television.
Okay, so I have a question because I watched season 1 and 2 with my husband, Eric, and we have not dipped into season 3 because you have not undersold that they are very dysfunctional, not super nice, likable.
Nope.
There's nothing really fun or light going on.
Every smile has a devious side to it in that show. There's no one who's just ever happy, period.
Yeah.
Ooh.
I will say a lot of good guest star stuff happened in the first 2 seasons. And I know that Jon Snow is the major guest star of this 3rd season. So
From
Kit
Game of
Harington.
Thrones, yeah.
I'm like, why am I calling him Jon Snow? That's not his name.
Yes.
That's his main character that people know him from. But yes, Kit Harington is in this 3rd season. So would you recommend? Because it was really hard to watch because everyone is just like making the worst choices all the time. And also the salesmanship element of it is so uncomfortable. You just feel like so manipulative and like scummy and blah.
I can tell you, if you left off at season 2, you are leaving off with like 2/3 of the sandwich. You don't have at least what they're doing with the show yet. They are really unraveling these characters slowly over these 3 seasons. This 3rd season culminates almost every single character, either with an exclamation point or a period. And sometimes that's like, oh, damn. All right, that's what you did. But that's the ride I've been on for 2 whole seasons. So this 3rd season is actually really, it's worth watching if you put the time in on the first 2. And the first 2 are already challenging to watch because of the content that they're giving you and the character path that you're following. You're like, I don't know if I want that to be successful. But if you're binge watching it like I did, instead of slowly rolling it out or having to think about it for 9 months in between where you can like crystallize some of these opinions, it is not enough of a big problem for any of these characters over a season by the time you get to the 3rd season. There's so much that unravels in this 3rd season about the 2 main characters and at least the other 4 mains that they are dealing with throughout the rest of the series. So, like, one of the main heads of their business stuff.
The head of their department.
Yeah. Ken Leung is doing a great job at playing someone who is unclear on how much he will lean into the bad side of the business. He knows that he wants to lean into the bad sides of the business, but he also wants to keep his real life separate from that. He's done it for so long. Season 2 starts to break that. Season 3 is where it's broken. He might be one of the periods that I feel like is, oh, he got a period at the end of that season. It's going to be hard for him to figure out a new path. Everybody else has got like, where are they going? Oh, you're doing that? Uh-oh. So season 3, it's like a second act where all that stuff just, oh, wow, those dominoes are, I didn't even know that was dominoes you were setting up. Oh, yeah. So season 4 will be a great payoff. Season 1 and 2, yeah, I would agree with you. Those were real challenging, especially if you had to wait to watch them.
Yeah, I felt like it was difficult to watch the way we were watching it, which was very much like one at a time, because this is HBO/Max.
Right.
So now you could watch it more in a binge model, which is probably helpful because we watched it over the course of it coming out. So it was a slow roll and kind of difficult, and you didn't get to move through it as quick, and maybe that would have helped.
It does.
But now that the whole season 3 is out, maybe we'll jump into it.
And, I'm not going to suggest this because it's what I would do, but by the time season 4 comes out, enough time will pass for me. I will rewatch all of that in another week. I will re-binge all of those seasons again and get the full, week-long story of a soap opera.
Yeah.
That's really what it amounts to. It's like 2 weeks of a soap opera. Wow. If they were doing this on soap operas...
Soap operas, ugh, yeah. Okay, great. Awesome, Eddie. So I will maybe revisit that.
You should.
I was intrigued by
You're
the
already
characters.
invested in 2 seasons.
I know. They're just such disasters.
Oh, and that's just it. I knew that that's what that show was. It wasn't Succession. Maybe they're going to figure it out. Maybe you're kind of somewhere in the middle of you want that family to not be total idiots and torpedo themselves. Mm-hmm. Season 1 and season 2, you're like, I don't care if any of you torpedo yourselves. You're all jerks. So some of that payoff is like, oh, you did torpedo. Oh, that's why that was happening? Well, you didn't give us that last season, so I didn't know. I had an opinion. But overall, yeah, I would still recommend watching it because even though on that slow rollout, this 3rd season really starts to pay off a lot of that first 2 difficult seasons.
I will revisit it, I think, based on your review. Thank you. Okay, John, you're up.
Sure. Well, I went to the theater and saw Good One. It's an independent film, not in the theater anymore, so got to wait for it to come up on streaming or something. It was directed by India Donaldson. It's her first feature. Did a good job. She's done some other shorts. She's daughter of Roger Donaldson, who's done a couple movies you would recognize as well. But it was pretty enjoyable. It's a very strange ride. It's a setup where you're kind of following this dad and his daughter. There's some kind of convoluted family situation going on. Because there's like a baby around. Because she's a teenager plus, like maybe just graduated high school or something. And then they're meeting up with his, the dad's friend and supposedly their kid to go on like a camping trip. Well, the other friend doesn't come. So then it's just the two dads, two friends that are dads, and then this one daughter. And it's very like, they're not really playing to the kid. And, she's not a tiny kid. So it's like, oh, you're just one of us. And we're just doing whatever we do. So it's interesting. The one dad, James LaGrosse, who we know from Point Break and everything under the sun. He's done a lot of stuff. The other one, Danny McCarthy, I think you might know, Katherine. Somebody Somewhere.
Oh, yeah. Somebody Somewhere, so good. Can't wait till it comes back.
That sigh really at first was like, ugh. Like, did you hate it or love it?
No, I love it. But
Okay.
it makes me sad because I think they're finishing this next season is going to be their last season.
Oh,
so.
okay.
Well, I don't know. He's in this movie. That's all I got.
Great.
He's kind of, I don't know if he plays kind of a, not slick. I don't know. Not exactly a nice guy. It seems like he does that well. And then I think the main actress, the daughter, Lily Callias, is maybe new to the scene. She does a fantastic job. And then we follow them on a camping trip. And we get a lot of hiking and a lot of nature scenes and setting up tents. So if you want that, you should go watch this movie.
Do you get a badge at the end of the movie?
I'm like,
Very humorous. No, you do not.
I mean, did you feel like it was good? Because you're not.
I said good at the beginning.
Yeah, but then you didn't really sell it.
I'm not going to sell you on something and, mislead you. I'm just going to give you the facts.
Also,
you got to make your own choice.
You're not trying to sell us on something we can't get. It's not
True.
in the theaters anymore.
For
we
the
can't even
moment.
see it right now. Jeez,
Take it
John.
easy.
Oh.
All right.
So there you go. Streaming at some point. Good
my
one.
God.
Do you have any idea where it was set?
They live in New York City and then they go upstate a little bit somewhere. Multiple hour drive. I don't know how many hours.
It's set in modern time.
It is.
All right. Interesting.
All right. Maybe Ethan would like it because he likes.
Oh, there's so much in the
this-
queue to watch with him. I can't.
Teenager plus, I think no.
Okay.
All right.
Character driven.
Correct.
Yeah, not probably a 16-year-old's genre.
I mean, you're probably right. But I did like, do you get a merit badge for watching it?
There you go.
All right. Okay, so the next thing I was going to talk about is Bad Monkey, which is on Apple TV Plus. It is the Vince Vaughn-led crime comedy drama. I don't know.
Okay.
what
Sounds
you would
about
call-
right.
So the basic setup is he is a former detective who has been demoted to a health inspector.
Oh.
And his ex-partner brings him an arm, a dismembered arm. Obviously, if it's just the
Yeah.
arm, it's dismembered because it's no longer attached
Got
to
it,
anything.
yeah.
And he gets involved in trying to figure out where this arm came from. Now, technically, he's not a detective, and he really shouldn't have been investigating. So he's getting himself into a little bit more trouble by digging around in this, but he can't help himself. So it's very Vince Vaughn-y, which I very much enjoy a Vince Vaughn performance. So he's our main character that we're following. But then there's a whole other group of eccentric characters around him. His ex-wife is played by Michelle Moynihan, and she's very loopy and kind of fun. And then he creates a relationship with the forensic pathologist who works in the morgue, and she sort of becomes his detective helper friend, love interest as the series progresses. At this point, we have not heard that there's going to be a season 2. I hope so. There's a fingers crossed.
That's a good cast.
Yeah, it's a good cast. It's 10 episodes right now, and the finale was pretty big. People did really enjoy the finale. There was a lot that happened in the finale that made the whole story of this season feel well connected and finished up, but you do feel like, oh, we could absolutely have more seasons of this with this main character of this detective. So then back to the pathologist that I had mentioned. So that character is played by Natalie Martinez, and she's great. And then his ex-partner is John Ortiz, and that's a fun relationship because, of course, the ex-partner, and Vince Vaughn is like, we're never ex-partners. You're always going to be my partner. I mean, all of the Vince Vaughn delivery is just perfect Vince Vaughn. That's really the most comedic part of the show, because otherwise it's...
His delivery.
Yeah, it's really more just like a little bit of a goofy, wacky crime and some slightly odd people, but not like comedy. I would say it's a combination of murder, real estate, a monkey, and then possibly magic, because there's this storyline of what's going on in the Bahamas, and there's a woman called the Dragon Queen.
This went off the rails and seems unrecommendable now. But
What?
No, it definitely seems
Why-
like, an updated crime drama of Game of Thrones.
Did
with
you
the
like go to
Dragon
sleep,
Queen.
wake up, another show is going, and you
No!
the
No,
Bahamas
no.
and magic?
Okay, so he's a former detective living in Miami who gets involved in a murder. It just so happens that this murder is also connected to something that's going on in the Bahamas. So we follow some characters who are in the Bahamas. That's where the real estate thing is happening, and where the monkey, and this one character who the monkey is a pet. The monkey is delightful. It did make me think of
Was
Chimp
it a real
Crazy.
monkey?
Yeah. Just
I thought
like
they weren't
has a-
allowed to be in
Well, I mean,
productions anymore after we all watched Chimp Crazy.
yeah. Well, I
This
think
was before that.
No, supposedly that's been. Okay, I don't want to quote me, but I thought that had changed, or you couldn't have like live.
Well, this is a professional monkey actor, so
Okay.
I think
Okay.
it was fine. I don't know.
Have you checked the credits? Is you sure it's not Andy Serkis?
It's definitely a monkey.
Oh,
Okay.
and everything.
So in the Bahamas, there's this character who's trying to like get his home back because of this real estate development, and he goes to a local woman who can put a hex on somebody. And that's the magical connection. And you do feel like, well, maybe that magic kind of worked. I'm not sure.
Okay.
Or is it just like, coinkydinks that he wants some bad things to happen to this real estate development situation?
there's magic everywhere in the world, Catherine. If you just look for it, you
Oh.
will see it.
Okay.
Where was this available? Was it on Hallmark? 'Cause then it totally is just a mysterious magic happened.
No, this is Apple TV Plus, and it is developed and created and EP'd by Bill Lawrence, who did Ted Lasso for Apple TV Plus. So they have
Right.
a long-standing connection there. So the other funny thing is there's a Scrubs connection, because that was his show. Zach Braff playing a real sketchy doctor, which is very fun in there. So I found it very enjoyable. It's crime, but kind of funny, and a monkey. I
Well,
don't know.
you
So-
just Vince Vaughn sells me on just about anything.
yeah. I mean, well, it's a lot of Vince Vaughn. Him just walking around trying to solve this crime.
Tall with
he's-
like 3 or 4 bags deep, just looking exhausted.
It's great.
I love it.
Well, plus he's really good at just irritating the crap out of everybody, just with his little one-liners and his little jabs and yeah, he's very Vince Vaughn. It's apparently I just enjoy saying Vince Vaughn. So he was really good. And I found this very enjoyable. So that's on Apple TV Plus. It's 10 episodes, all currently available. I watched them as they rolled out, which was a little less fun, but now you can do the whole thing.
Given that he's being very Vince Vaughn-y, did you buy him being like the inspector or the cop? Does he pull that off? Are you convinced?
Convinced.
That's it.
Oh, geez.
He was very good.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. So there you go.
All right, so I was in a little bit of the doc world. I'm only going to deeply review or extensively review one of them, but I did watch the Will and Harper, Will Ferrell and Harper, his basically partner from SNL days, writing partner, and they go on that cross-country road trip that you recommended. I recommended it as well. It was very enjoyable. It was beautifully done. And yes, stay past or a little bit into the credits for the Kristen Wiig song. And that's on Netflix, Will and Harper. Then I also watched Love, Charlie, which is the documentary, also a movie. And this was about the rise and fall of one of the first rock star iconic chefs, Charlie Trotter, out of Chicago. And the ego that takes to have that level of a restaurant, who comes out of those kitchens, what it produces, the love-hate within the restaurant world for him. He was really known as Chuck, but his restaurant, Charlie Trotter, sounded sophisticated, full name, and he fought having it being named after him, but they did it. It was open in Chicago for, I think, over a decade plus, which was very successful. And he died at 54 in 2013 of a stroke.
Wow.
So this is sort of the love letter to him much later, in the sense of like, those kitchens churn out what are we now benefiting in the sense of rock stars and the Food Network and all those things, that these have become personalities. He was one of the first.
I would even suggest that The Bear is derivative of that.
Oh.
Like showing the amazingness of those restaurants and how that translates into someone wanting to increase their own community.
For sure, because he was one of those maniacal, the expectation for perfection and how involved he was with his own kitchen and training people, and then where they went from there. That's one of the storylines in The Bear. So it's, if you're doing research on how am I going to create The Bear and what is going to be the ethos or what's going to be the base of that, Charlie Trotter and his restaurant in Chicago would have been one of the things you would have looked at and studied. So love Charlie on Netflix. It's a movie. The one I'm going to go into more in-depthly, it was on Hulu, and it's called In Vogue, the 90s, but I-N, so not the power group.
Oh, E-N,
Yes,
the power group.
So this is
En Vogue.
In Vogue, I-N Vogue, the 90s. And really what it's based off of is the rise of the fashion magazine at the helm of Anna Wintour in the 90s, and how it went from a particular type of magazine to what we now, most of our lives have known, where it is a zeitgeist for dictating culture. And it's very fascinating. It's 6 episodes on Hulu. And really, it reminded me of a WWAW Prada, where Miranda Priestley, Meryl Streep's speech about Ceruleum. Don't you understand? We pick Ceruleum and how that affects everything.
Oh, the color blue?
Right.
Yes.
Yeah, that whole thing? Yeah.
Because it's like, Anne Hathaway's sort of like, are they the same? Like, who cares? And, Amanda Priestley, look at the glasses, like, excuse me? And it's the whole Ceruleum speech about, we decide, it ends up on a runway, and then how it then filters through all the way down to society, where you bought that Ceruleum cheap sweater at Ceruleum Blue. It's Ceruleum. I mispronounce it, but it's ceruleum. I'm not going to go back and say it 50 times, but it's ceruleum blue. But basically how that ceruleum blue was picked by Vogue and was on the runway, and therefore, like I'm saying, filtered down all the way to poor Anne Hathaway's cheap sweater that she got in some bin at a discount fashion sale. I mean, just...
Wait, what's the magazine in Devil Wears Prada? It's not Vogue. I mean, it's supposed to be Vogue. It feels like Vogue.
It's all based off of Vogue.
It's called Runway, I think.
Yes.
Yeah.
So this is showing now documentary style about how Anna takes the helm in the 90s and has been there for 30 plus years. And through those episodes of the fashion, what the supermodel looked like, went from these buxom to like the Kate Moss and the backlash with her and the heroin chic. And then how she went from only models on the covers to Madonna, the merging of rock star, was in a editorial inside. But the first person on the cover that was not a model that was so like shocking was Gwyneth Paltrow.
Oh, really?
Yes, she was basically the first one. And it was a hugely popular magazine. I guess it took multiple attempts to actually get the cover shoot and to nail it. And inside, her and Brad Pitt is kissing her on the cheek. And then it took a long time to get approval for that. That started what then became decades long of where we're so used to seeing, celebrities merge. Baz Luhrmann and his wife are one of the commentators during this. And he talks about they used to be very siloed. So rock stars, fashion, movies, like they didn't intersect that much. And fashion had a snobbiness about them, portrayed by Miranda Priestley accurately.
Right.
That in some ways, it wasn't until commerce came in and the success of like crossing streams proved to be so successful. So the Hollywood merger, and then dressing, because actresses, the red carpet, did not used to have the designers that would dress the starlets and then be saying, what are you wearing? That we're so used to today. That was not the norm.
It's seriously like when I started working at TV Guide way back in the day, we were doing all sorts of red carpet coverage, and we were doing essentially a magazine show of commentary and is this good? Should we wear this? They look amazing. I did that for a couple of years, so I'm like very familiar.
Yeah.
Like, wow, that really, like, it wasn't just the magazine era. You penetrated all of the industry, the entertainment business.
It's wild to think that that didn't happen before.
Well, the first one that did it, and this is they document it, and it's so interesting because I, did not know this because it's so part of our culture that you just feel like, well, when was the moment that it shifted?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So John Galliano was the House of Dior at the time. Nicole Kidman was definitely a star within her own right, but at this time married to Tom Cruise, so the mega power they had together was insane. He dressed her for a red carpet. It was actually the Oscars. So this was the first time it was like a true designer haute couture look. The green is very like a chartreuse almost green, and it was heavily embroidered, beautifully cut to her body. It got something like 54 million impressions globally. So every designer was like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
So then that's why we had Gwyneth Paltrow in the pink Ralph Lauren dress. That, whether people loved or hated it, felt like it needed to be pulled up. It was like almost like a ballet design type of dress. But that's what started it, where it was like designers realized the commercial value and having these starlets and these celebrities saying who they're wearing. And now it's across the board of all genres, film, television, music, all of it. Then they talk about the Met Gala and how it literally started for the ladies of the Upper Side of New York, and they were on the costume board of the Met Museum in New York, and how when Anna took it over from the socialite group, she transformed it to what it is today, is considered on par with the Oscars or anything along those lines.
It's a huge event.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I've had clients go to it, and the preparation is absolutely insane. It's just berserk. Like who you're wearing, whose table you're sitting at, how much time you're going to get on the famous steps taking photos, like in the hierarchy of all that. It's very, very interesting. And then it goes to hip hop culture, and they talk about Dapper Dan, this guy from Harlem. It's considered very gauche to wear label head to toe.
Sure.
He was the one with the hip hop artist that basically, especially Gucci and things like that, and even Ralph Lauren and Tommy Hilfiger was the same thing, where it's like, oh no, you're actually going to wear the brand, from head to toe, layered across, top of each other, across each other, all of it. And that completely affected culture. And I will always give Anna Wintour credit because she will recognize the moment. And there's even the influencer, and I was sort of at the culture crossroad of this, where you had these influencer models, whether it be Gigi Hadid, Kendall Jenner, who I worked with, all of a sudden them becoming legit models and being treated at echelon of the top supermodels, and them realizing that they brought this social media exposure and eyes where they had 10 million or 100 million followers. Like, you weren't going to reach that audience any other way.
No.
So
not from just a runway.
That's interesting. I hadn't really realized the magazine era to the free social media era. That exposure is not $6 a month. That's free. Get on there.
And Anna Wintour does not care, really. It's like no press is bad press. As long as you're engaging and reacting, she doesn't really care if you disagree with this person does not deserve to be on the cover. She does not care. And she's smart about that. And she's at the helm, and they're so intertwined, Vogue and her. Like, I don't know what and when. She still looks fabulous. She wears the big dark glasses, the sharp bob, so critical. It's the famous quote that's attributed to my favorite, Lily Tomlin, but it's like evolve or die. And truly, I feel like this is showing the evolution of not only Vogue and fashion, but of Anna Wintour. And without her constantly pushing her editors. There's one editor that's famous, Grace Coddington, who, would hate change. And there's another editor like, I hate grunge, I hate grunge. But Anna Wintour would be like, no, this designer, Marc Jacobs, or this or that, like, let's go on the path of them. Let's encourage these young designers. Let's make sure they have a voice or a representation and give them a chance, because this is maybe the direction it's going in. And really, it's then talking about, like, the American dream that is Vogue. Although there's Vogue in other countries, Vogue US is really the standard. And the American designers like Calvin Klein and Ralph Lauren and Donna Karan and all those ones, and like, what is now the next generation? What will that look like globally? And it was just fascinating because, like I said, you could look at it just from like, okay, this is a Vogue history or Anna Wintour inside and behind the scenes, and she participates and is interviewed through a lot of it. But you can really look at it as like that turning point of where now culture cross sections in all these different ways, and now how it's all melded together. And we see it today. We're used to have actors who only did film, would never do commercial or voiceover, and now kind of everybody does everything.
Yeah.
So it's very similar, right? It's like, what is the pop culture? What are people attracted to and respond to? There's almost no rules anymore. And a lot of it is just like, what can get attention?
Yeah.
What can get attention? That's why we have things like TikTok and all these things. Like, if you can get attention, bad or good, there's some monetary value with that. And that's something to be questioned. But, and also just being a kid of the 90s, oh my gosh, there's just much like, I think I had that. I wore that. Oh, what a mistake. Like, just, and oh yes, I remember that when glamour came back, Tom Ford brought sexy back. Like, it's so good. Like, I definitely had a satin shirt that I wanted to unbutton to my bra. Like, just all of that. So it is available on Hulu. It's 6 episodes, and it's called In Vogue, the 90s.
Wow, it sounds really good.
It's great. It's great.
Okay,
If
cool.
you're into fashion.
No, that's my whole point. You don't have to be. It really speaks to culture of how the 90s evolved through the birth of the internet. Like, through so much happened through social media. Like, it just talks about like, how did this, especially of our age, like how did that pop culture thing just explode into what we're currently dealing with today?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. Super interesting. Okay, Ed, you're up.
I also went down the biopic route of a movie about something real that happened that's based on a book. I watched a slightly older movie, but I'm still in my space movie stuff. I'm doing very science fiction-y things. Told you about some of the stuff I've done. It's very exciting. This one happens to be A Million Miles Away on Amazon Prime, starring Michael Pena. And it's a biopic about Jose Hernandez and his path from a farm worker to becoming an engineer and an astronaut. A tale of perseverance, community, and sacrifice to accomplish a seemingly impossible dream. I didn't write that, but honestly, I did get pretty worked up during the movie. Once you realize, oh, that's a real person. This is portraying someone who went through this in their life. And it's not just like, oh, for the movie, he gets married and he has kids and then his life is complicated and it takes a long time. I was like, no, that's a dad. That's a real dad. And he is busting his ass for that family. Then he has like 5 kids. And also between Michael Pena, he's done a lot of stuff that's like on the funnier or funner side. So it's nice to see him like come in with some drama and like really show his acting chops that, you don't really get to do if you're in a movie with a bunch of Marvel characters. Sometimes you're like, I don't know what I'm acting against. It's a green screen. But Rose Salazar plays his wife. And between the two of them, it's not like movie magic, but I buy them as 20-year-olds who just meet. I buy both of their family situations that are not the most in line to line up and, work together and make itself happen. But they're in like, Southern California. So it's already kind of like, I'm familiar with this. These are like people I probably knew somewhere in the world. And so then seeing them grow 30 years, go gray, become parents, it's a journey. And I don't usually recommend emotional stories because I'm watching this stuff for fun. But this one was on my radar. I figured I'd give it a shot. And between the story of him and his father and his family, the fact that the father character is able to let go of those kinds of things to whatever degree he does, because there's still jokes all the way to the end about like, well, I wouldn't do that, kind of like the fact that he can appreciate what his son did before the actual payoff. And this is a true story. So the character, Jose Hernandez, is the first immigrant in space.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
In space, or he was an engineer?
He was an engineer.
Okay.
Got a degree in engineering. His whole family does not support that.
Is it because it wasn't a safe bet?
Yes, essentially that. It doesn't feed the family. They are immigrant workers, and everything we are doing is to keep us going. There's a point in the movie where the father realizes we are doing this for us, not for our past. We're not sending the money back to Mexico to buy the house for the family that we left, which is where the story starts. We're just trying to survive and keep the family going. The father switches gears to, we're here, this is what we're doing, and we are all looking at our hands, and they are what we work with. So we need to work this because that is our future. Him is our future.
Yeah, because I feel like that is much more, from what we're hearing more and more, even in this, current environment, that immigrants, so much of it is the next generation is about education and breaking the cycle of where yes, you would do what is labor work, where education is going to break you and your family out of that. So this took place like the 80s or
the late 80s,
okay,
right on through current times. And it's his path as an engineer, a Hispanic engineer in the full white science world. Like, that's not where he usually fits. There's tons of late 80s, early 90s racism and just putting him down and keeping him in a spot that doesn't let him progress. And then he, stands up and shows that he is smart and has the answers for these guys. And gosh.
Do you need water?
No, it's not that I'm choked
it's
up.
ju-
It's
it's
like
just-
it's a really
it's
good
emo-
emotional story that I'm like,
Right.
I felt for this character, so now it's hard not to talk about it. Not
Yeah.
care about it. His family's perseverance translates to his perseverance. There's, it might have been exaggerated, but I doubt that it was highly exaggerated. It was probably on the order of 15 times. As in, for 15 years, there's a time during the year where you can submit to become an ASCAP, which is an astronaut in training. And that term in the last movie that I recommended about Space Cadet, really is a funny sounding term. And this one, you're like, he made it! He made it to ASCAP! Because essentially, his wife catches that he's been submitting year after year and getting rejected. They have a big argument. She's on board, which is great. Then it's like, year after year, you see another kid get added. You see more of his life. You see some responsibilities at this place. Eventually, it gets to the point where he sends in, like, his 15th, but his wife is like, you got to bring this one in person. Which is the big change. And that's like, that becomes the third act where, like, that's where the progress is made and you get to go forward. And he does become an astronaut and goes into space. So, like, it's a story that you want people to watch because it's about trying to achieve your dreams. It's a real, actual success story. So this goes on the family recommended playlist.
It sounds amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, if you look at the reviews online, it's like overall, it's like basically excellent. So you're sort of like, it's just going sadly underneath the radar.
Well, and also it was out last year, so it's not fresh in any way, but similar to Industry, that was on my radar for a while. I also was like, well, let me wait to pull the trigger on that. Is it going to have another season? Oh, there's another season. Okay, when that season finishes, then I'll pull the trigger on that.
All right.
So this one just happened to be on my radar for a while. I didn't know it was such a great story that I was missing. I don't usually go for the reviews or recommendations of stuff. I go with my own, intuition. But everybody else is right about this one too.
Sounds amazing.
It was really worth watching for sure.
Okay.
All right, awesome. Okay, John.
Oh, sure, me.
Yeah, what do you got? You got a rewatch?
Yes, I suppose I could do that. Are you ready for 1997's The Saint?
Oh, The Saint. Okay. All right.
This is
Val Kilmer?
and Elizabeth Shue.
Whoa.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, incredible. I mean, it tells his whole story as a character, from childhood at an orphanage in Asia to becoming this international, master thief who's unfortunately taking advantage of Elizabeth Shue, which is sad. But then he realizes that maybe that wasn't such a good idea. And he goes back to his roots of like, no, I should do good things. So that's kind of where it ends, that he finally okay, I'll steal and do things that are good.
So Robin Hood.
Yeah, kind of. Mm-hmm.
With a saint.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And a scientist.
Yeah. And Cold Fusion.
Oh, that's right.
You know
Okay.
what no spy ever gets credit for, and they could totally switch careers, is they could totally become a makeup artist. Legitimately, his makeup in that movie's
special
great.
effects.
Special effects makeup.
Yeah.
He's got a beard sometimes.
Yep.
He's got the glasses on, glasses off, hair long, hair short.
He has a lot of looks in this one, a lot of disguises. He's constantly fooling people. They don't realize it's him. You don't believe in this Cold Fusion mumbo jumbo, do you? And she realized it was him the whole time.
The whole time.
So, look, I don't know. I think it's pretty fun. It's from kind of a trio of great people from that era in the 90s. So, director Philip Noyce and one of the writers, Jonathan Hensley, both did tons of action movies of that era that are great. And then the other writer, Wesley Strick, did other movies, some scary ones, some just dramas, but tons of other movies you've also heard of. It's like, oh, this is from a group of people that did a lot of good movies. So that's why we like it.
Got it.
So that's why it's
the pedigree
also
is
a good movie.
good.
Yeah.
What I also just realized is The Saint is adapted originally from a book, and then it did movies, and then it did a radio series. That was with Vincent Price. Then it did a TV series with Roger Moore. Then it did another TV series. So it's been through kind of a lot of versions. This version, however, produced by Robert Evans, one of your favorites.
Ah, he is.
Ooh.
There you go. So you should go watch The Saint from 1997. It's currently on on Fubo and some other strange streaming services. So good
Okay.
luck.
All right.
Let's recap what we watched.
Yeah, let's recap. Oh, wait. You know what? Before we get to the recap, I do want to mention that I watched a stand-up special. I watched Ali Wong's latest stand-up special on Netflix. Ali Wong, Single Lady. Now, I am a huge fan of Ali Wong. This is, I believe, her fourth stand-up special for Netflix. She won Emmys and Golden Globes for Beef. People loved that series. She was amazing in it. And she is the star of one of my favorite movies, Always Be My Maybe, which is so great. It's a rom-com. She plays a chef who has a friendship that maybe...
Nothing else matters in there. The fact that Keanu Reeves and her get to make out.
Well, that's true. Also, Keanu Reeves' entrance in that movie is the greatest.
Yes.
And he's fantastic. And he's like one of the sparkling moments of it.
However, the glasses have no lenses.
Oh.
I think it's actually not that good.
I love him.
So her stand-up special, Single Lady, is primarily focused on she recently got a divorce, I believe 2 years ago-ish, which I was actually very sad to hear about because her previous specials, she talks a lot about.
One of them, she was hugely pregnant.
Two of them, she was hugely pregnant.
There you go.
She has 2 daughters.
And she had thanked that husband in some acceptance speech prior, I think, for one of those specials, basically, and admitting to the fact, like, without him, I couldn't really do all this.
Yeah. Yeah. So she had talked about him in such a positive way. You hate to hear that, like, oh, it didn't work out. But I want everyone to be happy and figure out their life. So you're like, okay, they got divorced. I hope that that was a good thing all around. And she actually says in this that she's best friends with her ex-husband. And she was very funny in this about mostly dating after getting divorced and being 40. And she's a very raunchy comedian. She likes to tell really nasty, funny jokes. And this really lent itself to that because it's all about her dating and her focus on what she wants to get out of that dating, which I'm not going to say, but it's very dirty, which is very fun. She does a great job, and I'm happy to see her back because she hadn't done a stand-up special in a little bit.
Focused on acting, probably.
Yeah. And she does, in the end, divulge that she is in love again. And she doesn't say that it's Bill Hader, but she's like, some of you may know already who this is, but I am, happy and in love again.
They've had their red carpet debut,
Yeah,
so we're not spoiling
they're out
anything.
there. They're out there.
Exactly.
Yeah. So, but she, if for some reason, doesn't name him, which, sure, however you want to do it. But that was very enjoyable. So I will leave it on that little note, and then we can do the recap. So that's Ali Wong's Single Lady, and that is on Netflix along with her other stand-up specials and Beef and Always Be My Maybe. So just watch all of those. Wow. Have an Ali Wong fest.
Okay.
So the other things that I talked about were Heartstopper Season 3 on Netflix, also Bad Monkey on Apple TV Plus, and then the Ali Wong special, Single Lady. Okay, Liz.
Great. The 2 main things I talked about, Nobody Wants Us on Netflix, the TV series, and also In Vogue, the 90s on Hulu.
And I watched the movie A Million Miles Away on Amazon Prime and the TV series Industry on Max. So total opposites.
And I watched Good One, which is in theaters, or was in theaters, and then The Saint from 1997, which is currently on certain streaming services. Good luck.
Perfect. Okay, so that's it for this episode. Thank you for joining us. And please follow us on all of our social media at Podcast Watching. And you can watch us on YouTube on the Knack Entertainment YouTube channel. All of our episodes live there. So that's it for What We're Watching.